Welcome to the Mental Health Militia News, where I am your host, Chabol, here with his co host, Mr. Munster. Thank you, Mr. Munster. Today in the news, we have a doozy, a lot of them. But before we get into that, I must mention a disclaimer. Yes, this is a news station that comes with a warning. Why? Because we care that the information we provide you might be fire, but it turns out that it is me and Mr. Munster gathering it, producing it, writing it, and delivering it, so it could blow up in your face just like this gentleman. So please use this for educational purposes only and listen with some discretion. Moving on from the fire to yes, as we are sitting in the great media war of 2021, we notice that many of the mainstream media platforms don't even know what kind of propaganda they're pushing anymore, and they just keep on regurgitating the same vomit that they said before. Moving on from the great media war to yes, as we're starting to understand who Chabol is. He did not produce the news last night because he was scout hunting. He was like, ooh, there's some comedians over there, and they all female. Ooh, no. Chabot didn't want anything to do with those woke ass female comedians, but they were pretty talented and wouldn't mind producing them on a show. But no wokeness here. No, we don't date Democrats. Moving on. Well, Misery's Democrat. Long story. Met her long before I knew about politics. Moving on from this news to yes, confidence. If you fight hard, know who you are, and are proud of who you are, you've got a good chance of winning. W. Lincoln Hawkins, AT&T Bell Laboratories. To the opening story. Yes, George W. Bush mocks Putin for deciding to be with a gymnast 30 years younger and jokes about meeting his enormous dog and suggests U.S. could create an alliance of convenience with China against Russia. Yes, what we're seeing here is we absolutely know who George Bush is laying in bed with. It seems like it's the Communist Chinese Party because it obviously isn't him worried about Putin sleeping with a woman 30 years younger than him. I can't sleep with a woman 30 years younger than me. It'd be gross. She'd be 7 years old. Blech. But, I mean, if I was 60 something years old and she was 30 something years old, I mean, I like 30-year-old women. I like 40-year-old women. Listen, if those breasts don't have hang time, I want nothing to do with them. Moving on from the news to, yes, the sick world news in your MHM news. To CIA trained Ukrainian paramilitaries may take central role if Russia invades. Yes, what we're seeing that the CIA trained a special force of military in Ukraine for a situation like this because they obviously knew a situation like this was going to unfold. So we see here that the CIA has plans inside Ukraine, this naming Ukraine corrupt in my mind. Moving on from the news to yes, Taiwan president decorates former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. What is Mike Pompeo doing in Taiwan? Is he just going over to checkpoints? Is he like, hey, everything's cool before the raid? Is he making sure that the power switches are working? He accidentally shut one off and killed half of Taiwan's power? I don't know. Moving on from the news to yes, amid Ukraine crisis, Biden partnering with Russia to revive Iran deal, thwarts U.S. opponents' experts. Yes, what we see here is that Biden is not going against Russia with the war and the invasion of Ukraine, but we see him starting to revive the Iranian deal. So, what is truly going on here? I'm not really too sure. If you want to, put it down in the comments. Moving on from the news to yes, the Biden administration is actively discussing sending Camilla to Romania. Hopefully, they send her to the Romanian forest and Poland in the upcoming days to show solidarity with Ukraine as Putin continues his relentless attacks. If you don't know what the Romania forest is, that's like the Bermuda Triangle of forest. You go in there and you might come out. You could come out with multiple names. You could come out with you could be he, her, she, him. Yeah, definitely multiple names if you go into that forest. Moving on from the news to yes, Ukrainian nuclear power plant could suffer a Fukushima style meltdown due to power being shut down after it was overrun by Russian troops. Yes, what we see here is a possible Chernobyl. Why'd they say Chernobyl? Why they have to go all Japanese on us? Like Chernobyl is like right down the street. Moving on from the news to that. I was gonna say if I lost this meme, I was gonna be upset. Welcome to America, bitches. In your MHM news. To yes, Mayor Lori Lightfoot said, "My dick is bigger than yours. I have the biggest dick in Chicago." Amid tirade over Columbus statue, lawsuit alleges. Lori Lightfoot, Chabot is a pretty big dick, but yet Chabot isn't in Chicago. But I'm sure I know how to work my dick better than she knows how to work her dick. Let's just be real here. Yes, we see here that Lori Lightfoot is absolutely wildin'. Moving on from the news to yes, Durham argues Sussman lying to FBI mattered as Clinton lawyer pushed collusion claims. Yes, as we see here, Michael Sussman is trying to have his lawsuit thrown out of court, saying that it didn't really matter what he said because it was immaterial to his statement given to the FBI, but it really does matter according to Durham and me. Moving on from the news to yes, as we see here, the time that President Biden was giving his State of the Union, we see that when he was talking about the gas fumes and smoke, Nancy Pelosi stood up and rubbed her hands directly in this motion, meaning bath. Bath is a word for wet work. Wet work is another way for sending out a hit. So was Nancy Pelosi saying, yes, this is a hit job, and confirming of the piece that it was a hit? I think so. Moving on, I've watched that video over and over, and it was a signal of some sort. Moving on from the news to yes, judicial system unfair to sex offenders, says Biden Supreme pick. Yes, we see here that Kanchania Brown Jackson is saying that the system is rigged against sex offenders and is treating them unfair. I would say it's not being fair enough because they should really have a harsher punishment than they already have gotten. I don't know. Maybe there should be like a human centipede, but with like ass raping for people who've sexually assaulted other people. I don't know. I'm for it. Moving on from the news. If I knew there was a human centipede of butt sex going on in jail because of sexual crimes, I would definitely not commit sexual crimes. But I don't commit sexual crimes anyway because I take care of myself. Moving on from the news to yes, White House deploys Joe Biden to reboot Joe Biden's image. Yes, is what we're seeing here is Joe Biden is going around the country to argue her point that her husband is mentally stable to stand up for our country. Well, what is she doing? Is she walking around with like his brain scan? She was like, look, his brain is fully intact. It looks a lot better than John F. Kennedy's brain. I'm not sure, but she's just pushing. Moving on from the news to yes, how can I not help you with your tech support in your MHM news? To the Surgeon General calls on big tech to turn over all Rona 19 misinformation data. Yes, what we're seeing here is that the United States government is tallying up all the misinformation that is given. So your name is probably being dropped into a hat if you posted something on your big tech platform. Moving on from the news to yes, voter fraud is a felony and could lead you up to 3.5 years and $10,000 fine or Gitmo in your life. Moving on from the news Yes, Wisconsin's voting machines were connected to the internet during the 2020 election. The Dominion NES and S were online, and a Democrat operative ran Green Bay's election from his Hyatt Regency hotel room. Yes, what we're seeing here is that they have filed in the court systems of Wisconsin Assembly or something like that, that there was a findings that these systems were hooked up to the internet and that was not allowed in the election. Moving on from the news to the Rona Jabberoonie section of your MHM News. I gotta get better looking at this camera. Definitely gotta get a little better looking at this camera. Moving on from news to Children's Health Defense says Pfizer and FDA dropped data bombshell on Rona vacation consumers. Yes, what we're seeing here, that in a $55,000 page set of documents released on Tuesday, that this Jabberoonie was not a vacation for the people, but was actually a drug. It was a drug for the people on human genocide and reproductive issues. Woof. We're seeing here that are the big pharma companies going to be suffering major lawsuits because they administered a drug that was still in trials and never gave out the drug that was FDA approved, which should have happened. Moving on from the news, yes, they gave out a drug that wasn't FDA approved. Even though they said it was FDA approved, they still did it. Moving on from the news, because the one that was FDA approved was never able to, it wasn't released in the US, only the EU. Moving on to the truth is coming out about the Rona deaths. Yes, what we're seeing here is that most of the people that were hospitalized and succumbed to the Rona were the people that were Jabberoonied. Moving on from the news to Senate votes to end the Rona 19 emergency declaration. Biden threatens to veto the bill. Yes, as we see that a vote of 47 out of 48 votes voted that we should end the emergency declaration of the Rona, but Joe Bootstraps Biden's just like, I ain't having it. We ain't having it. This with the reset hasn't happened yet. So we see Bootstraps smacking it down probably. Moving on from the news to this is the article I thought was going to come after the last one, but I didn't plan it properly. Oh well, I'm just a low-class dude making the news. Whilst you've been distracted, Russia's invasion, the UK.gov or the UK Gov released a report confirming the fully vaccinated now account for 9 in every 10 Rona deaths in England. Yes, as we see here that not all statistics are real. Only 30% are actually good. But we see here that these cases of the people that are on vacation to the people that are vacationed, the large difference between the deaths, hospitalizations, and sicknesses. Moving on from the news to the crimes against humanity section of your MHM News. Mr. Munster, how you going to step up against crimes against humanity? Oh, you going to start a podcast? Ooh, Mr. Munster. You're already doing that, Mr. Munster. Oh, you got me. Moving on to Melinda Gates slams bill for continuing to meet with evil Jeffrey Epstein after she had nightmares about him and suggests he had multiple affairs throughout their 27-year marriage. Yes, what we're seeing here is it took Melinda Gates 27 years to figure it out, and us only a couple photographs and reports on who Jeffrey Epstein was. Moving on from the news to wanted, dead or alive. Russian businessman puts a $1 million bounty on Putin's head, calling for military officers to arrest him as a war criminal. Yes, what we're seeing is a businessman from Russia, obviously has some kind of ties with probably these biolabs or human trafficking going on in Ukraine, and wants his money back. I don't know, but it's odd that these people are putting out a hit on Bootstraps. I mean, not Bootstraps, Putin. Moving on from the news to yes, oh my gosh, just blew my mind. Trump National Security Council official received report on multiple shooters and Antifa and ISIS involved in Las Vegas shooting. Yes, the bombshell evidence prepared for a recent deceased Trump National Security Council official explicitly reports on multiple shooters carrying out the Las Vegas terrorist shooting on October 1st, 2017. Woo! Yes, what we're seeing here is that the information for this Las Vegas shooting is going to be coming out soon, and hopefully we'll be getting more and more information from the shooters in the helicopter. Moving on from the news to you shut your mouth, we'll bomb who we want. It's war propaganda. Moving on to yes, Germany sends 2,700 anti-aircraft missiles to Ukraine despite Moscow's warning. Yes, we see here that Germany doesn't mind just wasting money, just sending air defense missiles to Ukraine, but they're rolling in tanks. Who knows? Are they even going to get them? Why would Russia even let anything come in? Who knows? I just report it. Moving on from news to yes, the gender wars section of your MHM News. Mr. Munster still thinks gender wars section of the MHM News is funny as hell. I think so too, Mr. Munster. I think so too. Moving on to Iowa Governor Kim Rollins signs bill banning transgender girls and women from female sports teams. Yes, we see here as the male-female jump into the female section of the sports team, they break all sorts of records and make it unfair for the females to truly compete because these male boys, girls are jumping into these sports because they can't come in the last in a male sport. So they can't, why don't they just have their own sport? A whole bunch of male boys, girls just playing with each other. Moving on from the news to yes, the border jumper section of your MHM News. That's right, put down that tequila, hombre. Moving on from the news to yes, Bootstraps Biden wants $10 billion to protect Ukraine's border after spending $6 million every day to not build U.S.-Mexico border wall. Yes, what we're seeing is the United States is penalized $6 million every day that the work on the border wall does not continue. So we see that Bootstraps is pushing for more money to be siphoned through Ukraine. Moving on from the news to yes, if you've made it this far, you've made it to the veteran section of your MHM News. Moving on to yes, Mike Pompeo in Taiwan puts out, it is humbling to be honored by President Tsia for advancing the U.S.-Taiwanese relationship. We stand with you always. But he put this post out at 5:55, maybe referring to this 5:55 drop, saying that we are with you. I believe it could be that. I mean, it's odd that he's in Taiwan as they're about to be taken over by China. Moving on to yes, Fox covers and puts on Putin's special military operation on schedule. And if we see this on almost a 3-year delta, says on the schedule. Yes, what we see here is that these two stories almost match, almost giving a link to a drop. Moving on from the news to yes, in post 829. Okay, yeah, I got the pictures. Okay, we see here it says Zebra Zebra, Bring the Thunder, Killbox, Light T, 1A, 23, Go 5. What we see here is on all these Russian big ass vehicles that have weapons on them, tanks, RVs, Humvees, GVs, TVs, I don't know. But we see they all have Z's on them. Zebra, Zebra, I don't know. Could this all be part of the war? And almost coming in a 4-year delta. Moving on from the news to yes, as we roll into March and DJT put out March Madness. We grabbed the March Madness post from drop 951. March Madness, public will know soon. 911. Hey Q, are we going to have a big week this week? He said March Madness. Moving on to the next March Madness. 3019. Shall we play a game? How many tweets has POTUS forwarded in the past 12 hours? Up, old drop. Primary topics, March Madness. Do you have your blank? Fill it in. Post 2942, full scale attack, March Madness. Prepare. Moving on to, gosh, if you've made it this far, you've made it 21 minutes into the MHM news. That is all for now from the Mental Health Militia News. Mr. Munster and Shabul, God bless you and yours. Have a good one. Holla at Shabul. 2 fingers. Man, that was 2 days worth of work. Wasn't that bad. Wasn't that bad at all. I didn't mind it. I have inspiration now. Can't tell you what my inspiration now is. But I met a real Earth Angel. Craziness. Moving on. Oh, we're over. This is done. What are we still doing here? What are you still doing here? Go to bed. Have some coffee. Wake up. I don't know.